All right, Mr. Vice Chair, the meeting is yours.
All right, thank you and welcome everyone. Go ahead and call to order the Fire Service Membership Council meeting for April 2022. Roll call, please.
Okay. Chair Christine Reed is going to be absent today. Vice Chair Diehl, I've got you. Chief Adams, I have you. Rick Boisford, you on the line?
Yes, sir.
All right. Noted. Chief Buxton, I've got your attendance. Fire Marshal Desrochers, did you make it? He was not feeling well today, so we'll check back in on him later. Marshal Farley. Gary Farley, are you on? Chief Hyde, I have your attendance. Chief King. Chief King. Chief Lane.
I'm here. I'm mobile. I'm in Salisbury, Maryland, and not sure how this is going to work on my phone, but I'm with you right now.
All right, sounds good. Gotcha. Marshal Lund, I have you. Chief Medina, I've got your attendance. Marshal Nelson, I've got you. Marshal Porter. Coy Porter. Steve Swarthout says he's going to be on an airplane today. We doubted that because all airplanes have internet now, apparently, or allegedly. But he said he won't be able to join us today. And Chief Wassom, I've got your attendance as well. Director Sayers, I have you. Director Metz, I saw you. Myself. Tim Schmitz, are you on?
I'm right here.
Gotcha. All right, Mr. Vice Chair, that is the roll, and we have a quorum for a meeting.
Very good. Well, welcome everybody. Carl, if you'd like to go ahead and introduce our presenter for today, we'll go ahead and get that started.
Yes, sir. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you Mike Luna. Mike comes to us, I'll let him do his bio, but he comes to us from one of the ICC family of services companies. So that's ICC NTA. He and I have talked a couple of different times. He's got a great presentation for the group. And just as a reminder for most of the folks on the line, if you don't frequent this meeting, every 3 months or so, we try to do a presentation from one of our ICC family of services companies, just to give a broader perspective of what's happening out there and we're constantly evolving. So Mike's been in the business for a long time. I'll let him talk about his bio and some of the great things that are going on down there in Bryan, Texas, where he works, including the new, seemingly new at this point, because you've been there. Probably seems like it's been there forever. The ICC NTA Fire Lab down there in Bryan, which we're all excited to hear some more about too. So, Mike, the floor is all yours, and we look forward to your presentation.
All right. I'm going to share my screen here.
Sir, and I'm going to spotlight you too, so everybody can see you. There we go.
Everybody see that?
Yes, sir.
All right. Again, thanks, Carl, for the introduction. My name is Mike Luna. I'm a senior director with ICC NTA. I have about 25 plus years experience in fire testing, inspections of manufacturing facilities, and certification. Started my career with Southwest Research Institute. From there, moved over to Intertech, and I worked there for about 14 to 15 years. And then did a stint over in the Middle East in Dubai, started the business there, and I helped develop US-based codes and standards to be implemented into their local codes. I came back over and ran the Canadian business for them for a little while, and then I joined NTA in 2017. NTA was a family-owned company. Began in 1976. Began by two families, matter of fact, the Tampos family and the Norcas family. Shortly I would say about 10 years later, the Tompos family bought the entire business from the shares of Norcus and became just a family-owned business with the Tompos family. So fast forward, in 2019, I'm going to go ahead and go to the next slide. In 2019, the International Code Council approached the Tompos family and decided that it was a good fit. NTA was then acquired in mid-2019. Since then, in the process from 2017 to 2019, the Tompos family decided to invest in building a fire lab and brought me on at that time. I was also in charge of their other testing businesses, which was more structural material property testing in Indiana. But the primary focus was to build another fire lab. And so during that process, ICC approached us, saw it as a good fit, and acquired us. The next phase of the development of the testing and inspection certification business came just last year, where PEI was the next company that was brought into the fold under the family of solutions. PEI, during the due diligence, we found that there was a lot of similarities on services that NTA provided. So at that time, it was decided that NTA would lead the charge and bring ICC PEI into their fold. So early in 2021, well, I'd say mid-2021, some of the services were transferred over to NTA, which included the engineering design, the plan review services, and any of the modular businesses that they were involved with. They were integrated in 2021. The next phase, which is this year in 2022, was that PEI had some more test lab space that they were offering to their customer base. The customer base was a little different, but at the same time, it fit well with NTA. So the integration of the test lab started this year and is continuing as we speak. So now NTA really has 3 locations that we're offering testing services, along with inspection services and engineering. So the 3 locations are Goshen, Indiana, Napanee, Indiana, and the Bryan College Station area in Texas. So the key industries that we serve are typically building products, where of course all these components and materials that are used in construction projects or renovation of buildings. That's what we're mainly focused on. Of course, there's building codes and project specifications and designs that require all these products to meet codes and standards. So that was a great fit. Now, we don't do anything from construction products, what I call construction products, which is, soil testing or geotech or anything like that. We mainly focus on the as-built environment. And of course, we use, experienced evaluation engineers along with test engineers to deliver all the testing, inspection, and certification. Now, a big part of NTA's focus for a very long time, since the inception in 1976, was offset construction. So buildings that were manufactured under factory controlled conditions that are now separated into 2 distinct categories. One for manufactured housing. Most people know them as mobile homes. Of course, we don't like to say that. Manufactured housing meets the HUD code. So homes that are built in a factory to the HUD code and are administered by, of course, HUD. And then another sector has evolved more recently is the modular construction, where structures, and it has been around for 10 plus years. It's just currently with the pandemic and loss of skilled laborers, more and more people are turning to modular construction. And so those structures are built in a factory. And what NTA does is help to ensure that these structures are built to meet all the local adopted codes or state modular programs that are implemented by approximately 38 states in the 50 contiguous states in the U.S. So, each state administers their own program of those 38, and NTA is one of the preferred providers of assessing all these structures being constructed in the plants and ensuring that they meet those codes. So when they get on site, they're usually closed up systems, and it's hard for locals to get in there and make their assessment to ensure these buildings are constructed properly. So NTA is there on site in the manufacturing plants to do that. So again, a lot of things happen before we get to that point, but some of the services for the offsite industry, since I'm talking about that now, I'll go through that first, is we do engineering, design, and review services and plan review services for HUD homes or modular construction. So we'll grab the plans, go over them, mark them up, send them back, and it's a back and forth until the plans are meeting all the codes, from plumbing codes to electrical, fire, structural. Everything is assessed by our plan review services. And then, of course, we have the inspection services for those modular or manufactured buildings. And those inspection services, depending on the program, may require us to be 100% on site, watching every single unit, or a certain percentage of those, depending on the state program. So that's what we do for the offsite industry. As far as products are concerned, we do evaluation services, and this falls under my purview as a products group. So we have a team of engineers that evaluate products to ensure they're safe or meet codes and standards. So we actually draft ESRs that ICCES publishes, and we can perform those services as an extension of ES, along with ESLs, which are listings to standards. So the difference between ESRs and ESLs, of course, is ESRs focus on code compliance, and ESLs focus on standard compliance. So, for instance, if you want a fire rating to ASTM E119 or UL 263, you would do an ESL, which provides information to whoever's the end user of that listing that gives them details whether they meet the requirements or not. And so those are published and run by my engineers in this group. We can also provide engineering judgments for site-specific cases where it doesn't exactly meet these listings. We can do the judgments and ensure that what they're trying to install or build is feasible. And of course, we do some load calculations for structural capabilities and such for our customers as well. Other things that we do in that group is inspection services. The inspection services can range anywhere from qualifying audits of manufacturers to sampling events of testing materials at the factory or in the market to assess their performance. Quality assurance, periodic inspections where we go to those manufacturing plants and ensure they're still making the product as they did when they tested it. And then more recently, we're starting to get into quality control inspections or supply chain inspections where we can ensure that factories outside of the US, typically where it's hard to do these inspections, are providing quality products to the US. And then, of course, last is the test lab services, where we focus primarily today on fire, structural, environmental, material property testing. More recently, we've built a plumbing laboratory, and then with the acquisition of PEI, we've gotten into automotive, and I'll talk a little bit about that as we move along here. So what does NTA do for the fire and emergency services today? So, our new fire lab, coupled with a new program that we've implemented with ICCES in a listing service, is something new that ICC is pursuing and doing. The other thing is with the acquisition of PEI, we've been doing, or they have been doing vehicle testing for a very long time, since probably the early 80s. And PEI's lab is now an ISO 17025 accredited lab for many of the FMVSS testing and certification to the AMD test standard, which stands for the Ambulance Manufacturers Division. So we do a lot of work for ambulance manufacturers. They send their ambulances to us. We have environmental chambers, and we also have a structural capacity test that we perform on those, such as seat pull tests and ensuring things are staying put as these emergency vehicles are flying down the road. Talk a little bit about our fire lab. With this group, we have a 40,000 square foot facility on 89 acres in Brazos County, Texas, which is the Bryan College Station area. In there, we have, we started that, like I said, in 2019. 2020 was mid-year 2020 is when we started running tests. So last year, 2021 was the first full year. We implemented 5 different types of tests, one being the Steiner Tunnel, which performs flammability, smoke, and flame spread tests for interior lining materials inside of buildings per the code to ASTM E84 and UL 723. We can do the extended 30-minute fire test in that same tunnel to address the wildland urban interface standards. We also run a multi-story test called the NFPA 285 for cladding systems. We can also do perimeter fire joint systems in that same apparatus. We also run room corner burn testing to NFPA 286, UL 1715, and AC 377 Appendix X, which is an ICC standard for spray foam. So we do a lot of spray foam testing, thermal barrier, ignition barrier, that type of stuff. And then more recently, we added a roof coverings test apparatus where we can test roof coverings for flame spread and burn through to give you Class A, B, or C classifications on those roof coverings to UL 790 or ASTM E108. And, you know, we have a 15,000 square foot building where we house furnaces. So our furnaces are capable of testing everything from structural steel coatings that are applied over structural steel to assess their fire performance ratings. We can do large scale, full scale roof sealing or floor sealing assemblies. And then of course, we have a vertical furnace where we assess fire ratings for walls, doors, fire stops that can be used in a vertical orientation or horizontal. And also we just gained approval for the U.S. Coast Guard and the U.S. Navy for fire resistance testing of bulkheads, doors, and decks. So we're expanding quite frequently and often. One thing I wanted to touch on is our new program in collaboration with ICCES that allows us to publish design listings. So previously, ICCES had a listing program, although it didn't encompass design listings. Now, design listings are proprietary in our model. They're proprietary to manufacturers. They can come and get their own design listing. These listings are a component of the listing report that ICCES used to publish. So these design listings provide a lot more information, pictorial representation of the assemblies that are fire tested. So very similar to a UL design, for instance, or an Intertech design. These are now ICC designs. So a little bit about what changed. The design listings can be found on ICCES's website. They are under the Building Products tab for listing programs. you can bring up all the products that have started to be tested and published by ICCES. So as I mentioned before, we do have a section here where, let me get a laser pointer, where we have the report number. That's the old ICCES ESL number. Now, associated with that, you can have designs. So for instance, this customer has 4 different designs that he's published under this report number. Similarly, you can go down and scroll down and find others that have done the same thing. So typically what that entails is the evaluation, looking at all the test data, ensuring they meet all the requirements, and then publishing that. Again, that changed where we have now a design listing associated with those ESLs. Now, next, to conclude, I have a couple of examples just to show you guys. The Icc Design Number is the new section of that ESL. So these design numbers can be used by architects or HJs to ensure they can be used on site, or it could be even in a modular manufacturing plant. So when we're doing plan reviews and such. So with this, you get a 3-dimensional representation of what was tested, and the components of all those things that were in the assembly when they were tested. So that's just an example. I do have another example of something similar with the coating that goes over structural steel. What we do for that industry is develop a table for different section factors versus fire resistance and the mill thicknesses required for those coatings over those steel sections. So a lot of testing goes into these, a lot of evaluations, a lot of calculations to determine these span tables. And so, yeah, it's very exciting to be able to bring that service to ICC and offer that to our customers. And with that, I think that's pretty much sums up where I am with this presentation. In conclusion, ICC is on a mission to improve and extend our reach to the fire and emergency service industry. The engagement of our professional engineers in evaluating these products to ensure they're meeting codes and standards. And we also want to provide a comfort level to architects when designing, and HJs when approving products for use in their jurisdictions. One-stop shop, so to speak. We go from everything from code publishing to accrediting labs and certification agencies to testing, inspection, certification of products, and making sure those products make it onto our website for public use. As we're dedicated to helping create a safer world and a safer US. So with that, I'd like to answer any questions if you guys have.
We'll open it up. Anybody have some questions?
We've got one. Let's see who it is. Kathy Clay, you're up.
Good morning, Mr. Luna, and I apologize to you and everyone on this meeting if this is a really dumb question. First of all, very impressive presentation. Yay for you. You've got your fingers in a lot of things. I don't know how you keep all that straight, and I've never heard more acronyms in one presentation. I'm sitting here in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and you started the presentation talking about modulars, which we've seen quite a bit of. They seem to be the rage these days. And I wanted to ask, and since I have this opportunity, I will use it. Have you ever seen a modular created for residential occupancy that's sprinklered per NFPA 13? I ask because we're going to put our 2-story modular unit above a 2-floor parking garage at level and below grade.
Okay. I haven't seen the sprinkler instituted. Now, I have seen residential modular construction, of course. NTA has been involved with that since the beginning. Again, that's not my expertise. My expertise on the fire testing, but I can definitely get more information for you. You have my email. I'm sure it can be shared by Carl or Tim. Share my my email address with everyone. If you have any questions about modular, I can definitely get you in charge or in touch with those that run that group. So
Yes, I figured you could. You have your fingers in a lot of things. Thank you. That was a really good presentation. I enjoyed it. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Kathy.
Okay. In that vein, can you talk a little about shipping containers used as modular housing and something about tiny houses?
So shipping containers, I've had a lot of discussions over the last couple of years on shipping containers. One of the main, there's an acceptance criteria that ICCES publishes on shipping containers. So that can be followed. I think the newest code is addressing some of the structural capacities of those shipping containers, where some lower end values are used for design. Now, what I understand is that the hardest part about approving these is the fact that the steel cannot be verified from the manufacturing site overseas, and whether it be from China or anywhere else, a lot of times we don't get those certs on the steel. So there's been a lot of great discussions on those shipping containers. And I think we're working out the details and ironing out the details so that if they don't provide those certs on the steel, that we either do coupon testing to ensure that the steel is per codes, or they have to use the minimum required design loads for those shipping containers, which are much less than what they would actually get if they were to be tested. As far as tiny homes are concerned, they have to follow, like any other modular construction, those state programs. So for residential or commercial, regardless, there are state programs that require certain things to be done to ensure those homes are produced properly.
I just remember that Elon Musk does have these small homes that he's like $5,000 homes. I don't know anything about that concept.
Yeah, again, I could probably get some more information for you on the tiny homes. I wouldn't have any specific details regarding that. I just know in general that they should be following the state programs.
Great.
Kelly, you have your hand up?
Yep, Kelly's got his hand up.
Good afternoon. Good presentation. I appreciate it. Just full transparency, I work for UL.
Yep.
So we've watched the family of businesses grow over the last 10 years. And whereas our relationship with ICC has been one of collaboration for many, many years, it's getting to the point now where actually we are competitors in many, many fronts. And a lot of the problems that we've had over the years, either you are dealing with and or will deal with in the future. And the biggest one that I would throw out there would be, especially since you're also a code writing body, how do you anticipate to deal with conflicts of interest between writing ESLs, ESRs, engineering judgments, product testing, your certification program, and then also writing code?
I think you could look at it very similarly to UL. UL has their standards writing development organization, very similar to ICC, where they publish the codes. The certification and testing business is separate, under separate leadership within the organization. So I don't think you have the mix of people that would create a conflict of interest. Very similar to, I think, how UL is set up. And there's others. There's in Europe, you have very similar situations with code writing bodies, and they have test labs and certified products. So our accreditors is who we lean on to ensure we're doing things properly. We're accredited by an ILAC MRA participant, which in our case for the testing is A2LA. I think the certification agency with ICC ES uses ANSI. So I think our accreditation bodies are those bodies that ensure that we're keeping that separation of church and state, so to speak, to ensure there's no conflict.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Anyone else?
Hey,
Seeing none?
Mike, I was going to throw something in really quick, Mike, that you and I talked about, which is what's your advice? We've got a lot of code officials on the call here today. You know, they're going to see a listing come down or any of the other products, and you know, obviously that's got a you know, a similar logo on it to the standard ICC, you know, main logo. So you know, I know that we've addressed some confusion at times in terms of how folks interpret and may or may not approve those listings at the local level. But what's your advice? I know you've been in this business a long time. Kelly and I have had this conversation too. What's your advice to the code officials that are on the call today on how they should handle those and you know, how those pieces work for us?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a comfort level. This is a fairly new service for ICC. I think code officials, building officials, inspectors, they'll start to see more and more of these designs as they come across their desk. If there are any questions, you know, feel free to reach out to anyone, Carl included. He can get to me if you don't have my information readily available, but we will be available to answer any and all questions regarding our certifications.
Great, thanks. And I think just to follow up on that, some of the confusion that we've heard previously from maybe less from the folks that are in this kind of a forum, but others that might not have the opportunity to participate in these, maybe in some of the more rural communities, talking about where the decision making occurs with the AHJ and the code official, and making sure that they understand that piece of it, that just because it's got an ICC NTA or an ES logo on it doesn't necessarily mean that you know, it's good for approval in the AHJ's community, right? That ultimately that decision is up to the code official. So any other words maybe or of advice surrounding that piece?
I think that you hit the nail on the head. You know, with my experience overseas, I've noticed that that UL's name is well known across the world, and when they see a name or a brand on a certification, sometimes they don't do their due diligence to understand what that certification is about. So I urge, you know, building officials to make sure they read the ESR or read the ESL to ensure they understand what they're approving, because ultimately it does lie on them to approve these products. So you know, I've seen where inspectors see a logo on a light fixture and assume that it's a fire rating. So it's a little concerning. At the end of the day, you know, I think everybody has to do their due diligence. You know, UL has been in this business for a long time and does the right thing all the time. So they stand behind their mark, as ICC does stand behind their mark. I think that we're both in it to create a safer world. It's just how it's interpreted in the field. So interpretation is key. I hope that building officials are reading these certification documents to ensure that what they're getting or what they're presented with is applicable.
Perfect. And any other questions for Mike? Tim?
No, thank you again. As said, a great presentation, a lot of good information, and appreciate it. Look forward to seeing more. So
thank you, everyone. And I forgot to mention, usually in the beginning of my presentation, I usually talk about where the fire exits are. I'm assuming everybody knows where their fire exit is in their own building. So
that's great. All right, you're more than welcome to stay on and listen. We're going to go ahead and move on into the rest of the meeting. So we'll go ahead and move into the minutes from the previous meeting. So are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? Looking for an approval for those minutes?
I'll make a motion for approval. It's Mark Wassom.
Second, Rob Buxton.
Okay, I have a motion and a second for approval of the minutes from the last month. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, passed. We'll go ahead and get into the work groups. Carl sent out that updated list for all the work groups just right prior to the meeting. So please refer to that, review it. We'll also have all the chairs should be establishing their meetings, and if they have, then we'll kind of go over those and mention those also so that we have a calendar of events, so to speak. So we'll move into, I know Andy's not here. Anybody from member recruitment? Chief Farley? Okay. I'm guessing we don't have anybody, so we'll continue to move on with that. I'll do for Fire Marshal Desrochers, who's under the weather right now. I'll give a quick report on that. We did have our meeting Monday. It was very well attended. We discussed several of the emerging issues that we have coming up, as well as the possibility of how we want to present those and moving forward on a couple of the topics. Didn't grab my topics page right off the top of my head, but we will be meeting every month, the third Monday of the month at 2:30, and there'll be more forthcoming. Public awareness, I don't know if Steve has gotten on or not, or if anybody from the public awareness, Brian Adams, wants to give an update.
We have not met since our last meeting in Rochester, so I don't have anything new other than what we already discussed.
Okay, very good. I know that you are setting up dates and times also. I think you're going to keep the Thursdays. Go. So Chief Wassom, on to you.
Good afternoon, everybody. A little bit of an update here this month. We've not met since Rochester either, but we've been kind of working on some things via email. And the big thing we're doing right now is working on forced proposals for the annual business meeting. We heard back from the ICC that they're not going to do a open call for proposals, but they've asked the membership councils to provide recommendations for courses. So we've been working on that. Right now, the three that we're looking at moving forward for recommendation would be an energy storage systems class presented by Chief Mike O'Brien, got a flammable refrigerants class that would be presented by Sean DeGrain with UL. And actually just came up after sitting in on the emerging trends meeting on Monday. We'd like to move forward a vacant building hazard class, and that would be Ray O'Brockie with the American Wood Council. So we're working on those right now, putting together the course descriptions and biographies, and we'll get those turned in next week for consideration. So I'll just mention our meeting date and time's kind of been up in the air as well, but following a survey that went out, we've landed on that we're going to meet on the first Monday of each month. That'll be at 2 p.m. Central. It was pretty widespread of days and times that worked for everybody. So it's definitely not a consensus that worked for everybody, but it's what worked for most. So hopefully that will work for our members, and everyone is welcome. Just reach out if you'd like the invite for that. But once again, it'll be first Monday of the month at 2 p.m. Central. Our next meeting is on May 2nd. So I'll just finish with a few upcoming educational events. Got the Community Risk Reduction Leadership Conference coming up here. That might be up here this month. I apologize, I don't have the date, but That's up in Canada.
Week of May 24th.
Thank
I
you,
got it
Carl.
right here. It's the week of the 23rd through the 27th, Mark, May 8th.
Thank you. I'll write that down. So, always a good conference if you can go up to that and make the trip up to Canada. NFPA conference and expos, June 6th through the 9th in Boston. We've got Fire Rescue International in August 24th to 26th in San Antonio. And then the ICC annual business meeting in September of this year. So more to come on that. We're also still working on courses for the National Fire Sprinkler Association conference that got canceled last year. It appears that we'll be able to provide the same courses we proposed last year for the canceled conference. So that's what we're working on. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Anybody, any questions? Very good. Thank you, sir. We'll move into reports from officers. Mr. Sayers, Fire Board, our board liaison, you have your report, sir. Thought he was still on. Did we lose him?
It looks like Jim is still signed on, yes.
He's muted.
Mr. Sayers. Okay.
Finally found it.
There you go. All righty, sir.
I'm doing well. Thank you. Sorry about my my glitch there. The first thing I'd like to chat about a little bit was the opportunity I had to attend CFSI. That was an absolute privilege. Some of the presentations I saw, particularly about fallen firefighters and the like, it really hit some things home for me that not being a person from the fire service, you hear about things, but you don't get to experience it. I'm not sure if "get to" is the right word, but just wanted to say that it brought a whole new appreciation, so to speak, and it not only that, got to meet some new folks. That was a pleasure for me. Got to know some other folks better. Anyway, it was a great program. I was just really feel honored to be able to get to go. Some of the things I'm up to right now, we do have a board meeting, a virtual meeting coming up April 29th. Got some things to discuss that are time sensitive, so we can't wait until the June 11th meeting to take care of those. June 11th will be in Bluffton, South Carolina for our summer board meeting. Next week, I will be in Kentucky for the Code Officials Association of Kentucky, and then in Tennessee for Tennessee Building Officials Association meetings. Lots of things keeping me busy. I was chatting with Carl earlier. I've taken a new position. I'm now the building official with the City of Oregon, Oregon. So some of those changes are, everyone who's taken a new job goes through all the orientation and the onboarding and the, gee, I didn't know we're doing that, and why aren't we doing this? And so that's been interesting. Just as a side note, I also teach at Portland Community College, commercial building code. So yeah, I've got a lot of things in my basket, but really a privilege to be part of this group. And if anything that I can do to be that liaison with the board, please reach out to me. That's why I'm here. So anyway, Unless anybody's got any questions for me, that's what I've got for today.
Yeah, Jeff Shapiro, go ahead. I see your hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, is there any update on the proposed reinstatement of, I believe it's CP 37, the ICC ethics policy that was endorsed by the IAC, and I also believe Fire Service Membership Council? I know that that was tabled by the board and given to a board task group, and I have not seen or heard any updates since then.
I believe that that's going to be on our agenda on June 11th. So I don't believe it's going to be on our April 29th meeting because I think that's got a specific topic. But you should hear something after that June 11th meeting.
Yeah, that's something that's very much of interest to this group. So if you could just flag that as something that you would keep us up to date on, it would be appreciated.
Will do. Thanks, Jeff.
Any other questions? Right, other ICC officers or directors? I think Randy Metz was on. If Randy would like to speak.
Hi, Tim. I just wanted to add one more date for everybody to be aware of, and that date is June 20th. That is your deadline to submit any public comments from the Rochester code hearings. So hopefully you guys are all taking a look at some of the actions from that hearing process, looking at what the committee's decided on, and that you're submitting public comments accordingly. So other than that, Jim has got it under control here. Thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Any other officers or directors?
Both here.
Oh, yes, sir.
How you doing? Hey, just wanted to say it was a great subject matter you had on today. There's so much good information coming from the NTA side of ICC, the Family Solutions. And just thank you guys for what you're doing. You guys got a great liaison with Jim, and he covered it well. So thank you.
Thank you for attending, sir. Anyone else? Okay, as was mentioned, Christine is attending another function today. She's actually on a panel in California, so we wish her well, and hopefully she's doing, we know she's doing a fantastic job with all the questions being thrown to her. My report, basically, I was at the CFSI dinner also and had very great conversations with Director Sayers and President Cindy Davis also. So that was I'm glad it was a well-attended function, and I think everybody got a lot out of it, as well as Director Jim Brown also. After that, I participated in the Icc Focus Group. That was the week after that. So that was a very interesting time. A lot of good questions and a lot of good feedback. I know there were a couple other fire service members in those focus groups also. So I look forward to getting that information back from that group. And that is my report so far. Carl, I turn it over to you.
Great, thanks, Tim. Got some, so hang on to your seats here. I'm going to move through a bunch of information here pretty quickly. There's a lot going on at the Code Council this month, and I welcome any of the directors that are on. Thank you for joining us to jump in here if you've got some supplemental information to add on this. So as Director Metz mentioned, just a quick reminder, Group B public comment deadline, June 20th, 2022. You'll be hearing more about that. I'll be heading up to the conference in Toronto for the IAFC's Community Risk Reduction Leadership Conference at the end of May that Mark mentioned, and we'll be presenting the Excellence in Fire and Life Safety Award to a member of the Fire and Life Safety section of the IAFC at that point. So that'll be next month, and you'll see a news release on that. In a few minutes, I'll put a link to the ICC Government Relations Monthly Update in the chat. Lots of great information in there if you haven't already received it. And then also, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that Building Safety Month is right around the corner. Visit buildingsafetymonth.org, and I'll put that in the chat here in a few minutes as well, too. There are 4 different themes for each week. Or a theme for each of the 4 weeks in the month of May, I should say. I'll be leading a great discussion, hopefully on disaster preparedness during week 3 with FEMA Deputy Administrator of Resilience, Victoria Salinas, and the head of FEMA's Hazard Mitigation Assistance group there, Director Angie Gladwell. So hopefully we'll have the both of them on. And the importance of that will come out here in a few minutes as I get to some of the other announcements, including one very big one from FEMA here in the last week. So more on that here in a few minutes. I monitored a conversation, and I'll put again another link in the chat here yesterday that took place on the Hill. It was actually a remote conversation that took place titled "A Matter of Life and Death: Improving Fire Safety in Federally Assisted Housing." That was a panel that was put together for a hearing. There were actually 2 panels in a hearing yesterday that took place in the borough of the Bronx in New York City. It was attended by members of the House Financial Services Committee that hosted this, representatives obviously from New York, as well as the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania joined the conversation. Of interest to this group, Acting Commissioner of the FDNY, Laura Kavanaugh, was one of the witnesses on the group and talked about where the FDNY and others are going in the wake of the Twin Parks West fire that occurred there earlier this year, and the tragic loss of life there in both as well in the city of Philadelphia. So I'll put the link to that in there. A lot came out of the conversation. We're still digesting some of the codes and standards pieces. There was a lot of discussion around both HUD, its state partners in the state public housing business in New York, as well as within New York City. All of those are key stakeholders and actually provide vouchers into some of the Section 8 programs that are of interest to us following those fires and making improvements on fire and life safety. So I encourage you to take a look at that, and we'll have something together in terms of probably a little bit more of a summary here shortly, since it just happened yesterday. Those of you who have not heard so far through the ICC's news release, we do welcome Mr. Russ Manning. Russ is going to be coming to us, or he has come to us and is working for us now as ICC Deputy Senior Vice President of Technical Services. So what does that mean? It means that Mike Pfeiffer has announced his retirement, and we're very excited for Mike. He'll be retiring, I believe, sometime at the end of next year, so in 2023. This is where I'd welcome the board to jump in if you have any additional information on this. But Russ has joined the team, and part of the transition will be the fact that we won't just have a hard break from all of the years of service and the institutional knowledge that Mike Pfeiffer has got in running a tight ship over in technical services, but Russ will get the opportunity to benefit from all of that through our fall hearings, and then kind of into next year as the 2024 I-code cycle wraps up and we start to get into the 2027 Group A pieces following that. So I guess I'll stop here really quick and just ask Director Sayers, Director Metz, or Director Boso if they have any additional comments on Russ Manning coming on board. Jim, I saw you unmuted. Anything from you?
Yes. No. The only thing I'd like to add is that one of the things that we have talked with Dominic over the past 3 years is that we want to make sure that we've got a succession plan that is that's going to be working for the Code Council, and so that we don't have any of those holes that can happen when somebody goes and you don't have somebody there yet. So this is an awesome way to have that done with Russ coming on now. And Mike's shoes are huge to fill. So having Russ in here early is a great thing.
Mike, anything else from you? I saw you turned your camera on there.
Yeah, again, as you hear this for the first time and you go, what? Which is what I did. But in speaking with Mike, Mike's passion for the code development is not going to go away. He's going to make sure that everything will be taken care of and addressed. So he's going to leave it better than he found it and make sure it continues on that path. So he's given us that reassurance.
Very good. Randy, anything from you? I think that we've covered Russ Manning in detail.
Yeah, I think we've covered this pretty much. There'll be more of these to come in the future years, as we do have a lot of our key leaders that are reaching retirement age. So I think Mike Pfeiffer was just the first one in a series of key individuals that will be looking to find the best people to fill those shoes.
Awesome. Thanks very much. As folks can see, I'm starting to populate the chat here while we're multitasking. So bear with me, but that was a big one, and I wanted to make sure that the board had the opportunity to weigh in. They've been privy to a number of conversations over and above some of the things that staff would hear. So thank you for some of the additional pieces in there, and we'll look forward to working through that transition with Russ. So the next piece I wanted to cover with you was there's a news release that we produced on applauding the passage in the House of the Resilient America Act. So if you haven't heard about Resilient America yet, it is incredibly favorable to the codes. I will tell you that there are some very specific pointed directions in there for federal agencies to incorporate codes and standards into their business and give some additional emphasis and funding to the codes in existing federal programs like FEMA's Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities, or the BRIC program. So we're really excited about that. I encourage you to open that up and take a look at it. In a similar vein, the Pro Codes Act, we are supporting legislation along with our fire service partners across primarily that you heard about the Congressional Fire Services Institute and the dinner that took place a couple weeks back. We have a majority of our main fire service partners on board, including the International Association of Fire Chiefs, the NFPA, NASFOM, the State Fire Marshals Association, as well as the Metro Chief section of the IAFC, and many others, NFSA. The list goes on, but we are really excited to have a broad coalition of the fire service and other codes and standards development organizations on board with this piece of legislation. The idea here is to give some protection to what we enjoy today in terms of maintaining our IP protections for intellectual property. As many know, that intellectual property of codes and standards, regardless of standards development organization affiliation, have been challenged in court, and we expect that some of those challenges will likely find their way all the way up to the Supreme Court level. And that would be a very significant change in the way that the ICC and other SDOs do their business. So please give that a look, and we would ask for your support on that piece of it when you are speaking with your representatives and senators in Congress. So with that, I'll leave that piece of it to you all to take a look at. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach back out to myself or Tim Schmitz or any of the GR team, and we'll be glad to help you navigate that piece of it and give you some information on how you can help us with it. The Group B results are now available online. I put that link in as well. So you can take a look at some of those pieces, as well as we've got some news on the FY22 omnibus spending bill that came off the Hill. One of the big pieces of that is the Nicholas and Zachary Burt Memorial Carbon Monoxide Poisoning Prevention Act of 2022. That is primarily aimed at the Consumer Product Safety Commission, and it helps to authorize a grant program for state, tribal, territorial governments to do everything from making direct grants on carbon monoxide alarm installations in the home through training and education and resources for code officials regarding carbon monoxide, and making sure that there is an opportunity for wide reach on this particular bill. So if you haven't read the story on Nicholas and Zachary Burt, they're brothers who passed away from carbon monoxide poisoning in the home, and the idea is that this bill was formed a number of years ago. We've been pushing on it almost since I got here, and it finally came in at the 11th hour as part of the FY22 omnibus spending package. So the key here is that there aren't any funds that have been allocated to this program yet. So we are still looking forward to that happening at some point and trying to figure out a way to be able to get it funded, but it is authorized. There is a program that's now hopefully being worked out and being put in place by CPSC, but they're going to need the funding to actually move it forward, and we'll work with them on that piece of it here coming up next cycle. So FEMA building code strategy. This is one of the last ones that I want to leave you with. So last week, the administrator at FEMA, Deanne Criswell, had an address. She made an address at the National Hurricane Conference, and in her speech, she recognized the International Code Council for our partnership with FEMA on a number of things, codes and standards related, not the least of which was an announcement about FEMA's new building code strategy. So this is an agency level strategy that is being put in place to essentially create continuity and advance the codes as a key piece of community resilience across the country to advance codes and standards and ensure continuity amongst most, if not all, of FEMA's programs to do with codes and standards. So we're really excited to be partnering with FEMA and the administration on this. It's a really big step forward. For many of you who know, there have been significant disparities between FEMA's let's say the hazard mitigation grants that are out there today and some of the key aspects of FEMA's public assistance program that are really good on the codes and standards, but there are other aspects within the response and recovery area, predominantly within the individual assistance arena and some of the other grant making areas where a concise and coordinated collaborative approach on codes and standards will certainly benefit ultimate community resilience through all the great things that FEMA does. So I ask that you take a look at that as well, particularly the comments in the news release. We were thrilled to hear them, and we're going to be working with FEMA as they implement this strategy over the coming year. We're also looking forward to a potential opportunity for this to become a federal interagency strategy later on, either this summer and early fall, with an announcement potentially coming from the president himself and talking about advancing codes and standards across the federal interagency. But no promises on that. I know it's in the works. At least we're there with FEMA. That's a big step. And we'll see if we can't catch the rest of the executive branch agencies later on this year. Finally, I'll wrap up with two items on wildfire. So last week, the Colorado Fire Commission voted and approved a recommendation overwhelmingly to develop a statewide WUI committee, which would be charged with developing the statewide minimum fire code for wildland fires. That recommendation has been forwarded out of the full Colorado Fire Commission and up to Governor Polis's office as of late last week. There may be executive action coming on that, or potentially legislative action coming on that, either near the end of this cycle or into the next cycle in the Colorado legislature. So we're monitoring that closely and optimistic. I know that they've got multiple fires burning now there in Colorado. And if there are any Colorado members on that want to speak to that, please do. But it's been a tough time for them all the way since the beginning of this year, and I don't anticipate that slowing down at all. But that was a big piece for us super excited about it. We remain optimistic, but also we are realists in terms of understanding that the local control issues in Colorado will play a large role in the politics of something like this moving forward. So it's the closest that they've been. I know that the Director of Fire Prevention and Control there, Mike Morgan, who many of you know, is incredibly excited about this, and it's the farthest that he sees the state having gotten with this since the last time they tried it. So we'll see where it goes from here, and we'd appreciate your support. Lastly, on the wildfire front, ICC 605, which is the standard for residential construction in regions with a wildland fire hazard. The board of directors was kind enough to approve all of the members that we recommended to join that committee. There's been a standing standards committee for the ICC 600 series, and we added 9 fire service positions to that and took away some folks that maybe weren't as appropriate to participate in the process, and that was by their own will, not because we kicked them off, but we did let them know the scope of this one, and we brought in the fire folks to inform it. So all 9 of them have been approved by the board. We thank you for that action, and I know that letters have gone out this week from our tech services group to bring those 9 new members on, and as soon as they have their introduction to how ICC does standards, we will set a date for the first committee meeting, hopefully in the next 2 to 3 weeks, maybe a month at most. But that is my report. I'll take any questions or turn it back over to Vice Chair Diehl. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Carl. A lot of information. Anybody have any questions, comments? Not hearing or seeing any. So we'll continue to move on. The next, we're into ongoing business. I don't know if there's an update yet concerning if you have any feedback, board member Sayers, concerning our conversation that we had in Rochester, considering the next board meeting is not until later on this week. So I would imagine that we're going to push that off again until our next meeting.
Yeah, I think, Tim, that was on there just as a reminder. I guess I'd ask Chief Wassom, had you and Steve Swarthout spent any time on trying to get some feedback over to Director Sayers based on our discussions in Rochester? And he may have, I know he's on a, oh, there you are. Go ahead.
I'm still there. No, we haven't made any progress on that front.
Awesome. Yep. So I'm just keeping that one on there to keep us, keep us on task with that. So didn't want to let it slip through.
Very good. Thank you. Moving on to the ICC annual awards process. April 15th has come and gone. There has been numerous nominations, and those committees and those groups will start working towards those. We will try to get a meeting together shortly from the fire service. I'll start getting some of that probably in the next month or two to start getting our evaluation process ready and reach out to the building membership council also, so we can all get that and have it coordinated and ready to go for September. I don't know if Carl, if you want to have any more updates on that or not.
Yeah, I think you covered it on the innovation award. The only thing I would say is, and I'll apologize up front, I'm saying this, I'm talking around the subject a little bit for obvious reasons, but I would say that the Fire Service Membership Council was reached out to for an endorsement of a candidate for the Robert W. Gain Fire Prevention Leadership Award. That candidate is well known to this group and may very well be on this call right now. So the group did handle by roll call vote a vote to endorse the nominee that we were requested to take a look at, and that was led by Chief Reed and Tim Diehl earlier this week. We did get an overwhelming response for an endorsement, and the FSMC will be writing a letter for the candidate of choice. But due to the concerns about potentially revealing who that nominee is, we did that in a roll call vote outside of the group that did include the entire governing committee. So hopefully that sums it up, Tim, and I'll give it back to you.
Yep, perfect. You did a much better dance around it than I would have. So, We're moving into the new business. Of course, as Carl mentioned, fire safety, building safety month is coming up. We've been asked to participate in that. I know the public awareness group is getting their items ready for Fire Week. But I did see Josh out there earlier for the sustainability, and I know we've been contacted by him previously about helping out with that. And I just wondered if he had an update or not. Not to call him out, but that's what I'm going to do. Joshua, you still on? He might have left.
Yeah, I don't see him signed in now, Tim.
Yeah, okay. So he jumped off before we could get to him. I'll be reaching out to him. Hopefully in the next week or so, you'll be getting some emails with some further information and updates concerning those interviews that we want to conduct and have ready. So we'll kind of move from there. Does anybody else have any other new business that they would like to bring up? I'm not seeing or hearing anybody. So our next monthly meeting will be May 19th at 1:30. And then I'll just go open it up for questions or comments from the audience. And Randy, I see your hand up, so go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Tim. I just wanted to take the opportunity because I know Kathy Clay is on this call right now. And Kathy is going to be retiring in the very near future. I think it's maybe about a month out. And I just wanted to take an opportunity to say congratulations, Kathy, on behalf of the Fire Service Membership Council. You've been a huge rock star when it comes to all things wildland urban interface. And we know that you'll stay involved somehow in this process. But on behalf of the entire fire service, thank you for your contributions. And we look forward to seeing great things from you in retirement.
Well, thank you so much for that. I've got 20 years. I celebrated on the 10th of April. It's an amazing thing to be part of the fire service. I retire with overwhelming gratitude. It's an interesting mix of sadness and happiness. And to quell that conflict of emotions, I very much want to stay engaged at a national level. And I anticipate I'll have a little more time. So please reach out to me if you think that I can be helpful in any way in this work that we do that's so important to the communities that we serve. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy.
And Kathy, we will be putting you to work for at least the next probably 18 to 24 months or so as we develop the ICC 605 standard. So thank you for graciously accepting our invitation to join that committee.
You bet, Carl. I'm looking forward to being part of that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Kathy is also a current candidate for the fire service or the fire and life safety section out of IAFC. So if you are a member of IAFC and you are a voting member, I'm sure that she would appreciate your vote for the FLSS Board of Directors.
Way to campaign for me. That's going to get you some honey or sourdough bread or something. That's awesome. Thank you.
There you
go. I will echo all those. Congratulations. Wonderful career. As a person who has retired from the fire department once and has come back and stay involved, I know you will do exactly the same thing. And I know we will continue to have great input and look forward to your voice on a regular basis. Any other comments, questions from the audience? I don't know. I know Mark Matheny was out there earlier. I'm going to throw it out to Mark. I may regret this later, but I'll see if he has any comments that he would like to put out there from the building membership.
Yeah, thanks so much. Appreciate the moment. A great meeting, great presentations, really good topics, both with the presentation and throughout. So I don't have a whole lot more to add. We've got a couple of things we're working on. Building membership council is looking really strong this year, so we're really glad to see that. Even our subcommittees, we've done a little bit of posturing and jockeying, some of it to actually help a situation that I got into. So I think we're in good shape with that. And we'll just continue to look forward to working with you guys in any way we can. So thanks for the time.
Not a problem. Always enjoyable. Anybody else? Questions or comments from the audience? Anything for the good of the order? All right. I appreciate everybody's attendance. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
Buxton, motion to adjourn.
A motion? Need a second.
Second from Wassom.
Thank you very much. Having nothing else, and I don't hear anybody, see anybody, meeting is adjourned. Thank you for attending and look forward to seeing everybody next month. Take care, everybody.
Take care, everyone. Thanks so much.